and I can just grab the seat and the tail. I've got the strong back complete. I put the 2x4 on there flat on top of the joist, and then I put another 2x4 up on its edge, and I screwed it into the 2x4 that's laying flat, and then I anchored, I'm not sure you can really see it, there is a screw like a toenail that's going down into the top of the joist to help hold everything. This will help to keep all the joist on the layout all the way down through there. I put it upright, a straight 2x4, got a little wave in it, but the edge of it is straight, on the outside of the wall from the plate down to the fire block, and just screwed it off. And that last joist is screwed into it. Now I can take that off now that I've got everything buckled down, and I will lock this last joist down to the top of this wall, which will help keep the wall straight, and I'll do that on both ends of it. I've been cutting my rafters, getting them ready to put up. There's 15 all total, including the 2 barge rafters, which will go on the outside. And I've made a pattern, as I've showed before. This is the peak, and this is the tail and the C-cut. And what I'm doing, I'm coming down from the peak 8 foot 3.5 to my seat cut. Then I can mark that out, and then I automatically have my tail length. Now this is an odd pitch of 2 15/16 12, just a little bit under 3/12. Some people might have went ahead and just used 3/12, but I wanted to have it as close as I could get it. So it just worked out to be kind of an odd pitch of 2 15/16 12. So that's what I'm going with. Now I've already cut the peak on that, and I've measured back from the peak 8 foot 3.5, which gives me just a little bit to play with. I can fit these if I need to. And I made a mark across the top, and I have a mark on my pattern, and I can line that up with this mark here on the top. I can see it there. Okay, and I can take my pencil, and I can just grab the seat and the tail. So I can cut these out, and I'll have this rafter ready to go up. Now just take my little silky, a little folding saw, and I'll finish that cut with it. And if I have to do some cleanup, I'll just take my chisel and clean that up just a little bit better. Okay, that's ready to go. I've got all my rafters on a set of horses here, and I've got a clamp on this end and on that end up there to kind of hold them together. There's some of these got a little bit of a bow. What I've done, I've lined all of the seat cuts up, the marks for the seat cut, all the way across, and I've clamped them together, and I'm going to lay out for my lathing. Everything I can do down here on the ground to make it easier, I'll do that. And what I've done, I just laid a 2x4 block here, and I just put my square on there to make sure that this outside corner doesn't go past, so when I put the fascia board on, I won't have this corner to deal with. So I've got a mark there, and I went ahead and laid out down through here 2 foot centers. That's what I'll put the lath on, is on a 2 foot center. And then at the peak, I'll run 2 2x4 lathing right at the very peak. And that'll take care of any flashing that I'll put up there. I'll have something actually anchored to. I've got the D-wall barge and the B-wall barge, and if you can see, I made a little note here to not cut that seat cut, because it's kind of unsightly when you see this seat cut right here on the outside of the building. You want that to be solid all the way through there. This looks a little bit nicer. I've got all the rafters up, and just one run of lathing at the bottom, and I went ahead and put 2 up there at the peak, or at the top of the rafters. I didn't get any video of putting these rafters up because I was on 2 ladders and I was just running back and forth, and it was a little bit awkward to try to video anything. But this is basically the same layout as what I did on Paradise Point, the cabin I did for my brother Wayne. This is basically exactly the same thing. I do have the outriggers down there that I notched into the rafters, and then snapped the line and cut them off to hold the barge rafter. Of course, it's held at the peak and down at the bottom on the bottom lath down there. I was doing this by myself, and I had to make me a helper. I do stuff like this pretty often to hold up the tail of the rafters while I got it anchored at the peak, and then I was able to come down here and put some screws in this lathing right here to hold it, and then I screwed into the end of the outriggers that will hold the barge up real well. So now I'm ready to start running all the lath. I've got the metal ordered. It should be here early next week. This is Friday afternoon, and it's really getting hot, and actually I'm about ready to go in and get a tall glass of sweet tea and a shower. But we'll get the lath on, and I'll make a little cedar fascia board and put on there, and then run my metal drip edge around and be ready for the metal, and we'll have a roof on it. I think I've got everything ready to start putting the metal on. I've got my little metal drip edge on there, and I've got the blocks in with the vents. I drilled 1.5 inch hole, 3 of them, and put screen wire on the back side. This is the same thing I did on the Paradise Point cabin, and there will be a link in the description where you can go back and watch that particular video where I cut these red cedar. They're 1x6s is what they are, full 6 inch. That'll let air flow up underneath here, underneath the metal, and in the little attic area. And there'll be a vent on either end over here where the air can flow on out from underneath the roof. I rigged up a block hanger type thing to put my string on, because I'm letting the metal overhang 2 inches from the edge here, and I'll line up the bottom sheets, or bottom of the sheets, with this string. We got the metal on the roof, and kind of just in time. If you can see, there's water on it. We just got a shower. Pretty good rain, actually. I've got the flashing that's tucked up underneath the main roof and out over, and I put a closure strip underneath. We're actually on the, I guess it'd be the north, maybe a little bit northwest side of the cabin. We don't get too many blowing rains from this direction. I couldn't video any of this because there's no place to set a camera up. It's kind of deceiving, but this ground, the lay of this land drops off pretty drastically. And I walked out there in the woods trying to see top of the roof, and there's no place I can get to without being up here on the scaffold or on the ladder to even see it. But so far I have no leaks, thank the Lord, and we've got this little situation taken care of, and we've got a good shade to work under. Jacob has been putting in these blocks here for the board and bat siding. We can have something to nail to about every 2 feet up through there. He's done a fine job putting them in. They're nice and neat. We've got one more wall around here. He'll run a row up here and another row through here. And I've got all the blocks cut for him, and I'll set you up with the camera and you can watch him work for a while. Jacob and I have started putting the insulation board up. Actually, we just got one sheet, which is an inch thick, and we've put strips behind where the sheets butt together. This will kind of help any air infiltration coming in between the sheets. So we'll rig up here and get the rest of this on pretty quick. When I laid out these end walls on the 16-inch center, I held this first one back an inch to take up for the thickness of this styrofoam insulation board. So when I put this sheet on, it'll come out to this point here, this corner, and I'll still be 16-inch centers on my layout. If I had just laid out from this point here back 16 inches with this first stud and on down through there, I would have had to fill in right here. But now I'll just be able to flush the insulation board to this point, and it'll keep everything running straight. If you can see the way these growth rings are, this is the heart of the tree here. And if this board has a tendency to cup, it will cup this way. That's the theory. It doesn't always do that. And so there may be different opinions about this, but this is the way I do it. I just say if the growth rings are like this, I call that the smile, and I put the smile out. And as I told you before, I'm just going to put one screw right in the center and let these boards kind of set and relax and maybe dry just a little bit more. They're down below 10% now, but we'll let them rest for a few days before I come back and put all the batting strips on. But what I'm going to do is turn this board over, and I'll cut two little grooves. This is 12 inches, so I've got my saw and a little guide on it where I can cut a little groove that's about 5/16 of an inch deep down through there, and that will relax this wood. It won't take away from the strength of it because it's really not having to do anything except cover up the outside. And I'll do this on window casements and door jambs that I build. And I'll just cut a little groove down through here, and that will let this move just a little bit if it needs to. If it's got a little bit of a crown on this side, it helps to relax the wood enough to where I can put a screw through it and tighten it up against the insulation board. I've got this little edge guide on my saw to where I can keep my lines or my grooves running straight. So you can see the two little grooves that I cut in there. That'll relax the wood just enough to where if it has a tendency to cup, I can still put my screw through here and tighten it up as I just told you. I did a layout on where my screws would be so that when I raise that up there, I'm not having to measure anything. I can just run the screws in. I had to wrap it out just a little bit on this post at the bottom here, because I'll come back and cut all the bottoms off with a skill saw. You can probably see a gap here. I'm not worried about that too much because some of these boards, as they were drying out, they got a bow. When I put the batting strips on, I'll plumb each one. So that'll take care of any gaps that I might have here. got all my boards up on this north side, the long wall of the kitchen, and I've snapped a line here. I know you can't see it, but I went back and I penciled it in so that I could see it really well. So I've got my skill saw set, and I'll just go across the bottom here and cut all this off even. I think that looks a little bit better than it did with those jagged bottoms. I'll let this set for several days, and I'll periodically check it with my moisture meter. When it gets down there to where I think it's safe, I'll go ahead and screw the edges off and get ready to put the batting strips on.